It's the top overall auto shooter, but is that pro? Has the iPhone 11 improved over the XS? How does this camera setup compare to the competition? And how does performance stack up against manufacturers' claims? Those are some heady questions to answer. To start with the conclusion, if we're playing the computational photography game, Apple has caught up tremendously well. I happily call this the top overall auto mode shooter. I'd give a slight edge to Google for stills and for streamlining the Pixel camera interface, but comparing the two companies are neck and neck. So when Apple leapfrogs Google for video, that puts us over the top. For some of my issues with Apple's camera app layout getting more complicated while trying to maintain some idea of consistency and simplicity, this is the overall winner for take phone out of pocket, push shutter button, upload to social media. The problem is, we have to spend a lot to get one small perk over a regular iPhone 11. And the price isn't the only consideration for setting our expectations higher. Apple labeled this a pro product. Now you can scoff or dismiss or make excuses for that label, but we should judge performance against Apple's claims, especially when those claims were built on marketing samples shot in multi-million-dollar production facilities made by a small army of talented and expensive filmmakers. Does Apple's great stabilization matter as much when you can afford an assistant to push you on a dolly? I feel like any phone camera would nail that shot. I'm of two minds for this review. A few of the small improvements to sensor tech and stabilization result in greatly appreciated improvements for the Instagram crowd, but I still run into the same old roadblocks when trying to complete a video from start to finish all on the phone. And the performance here doesn't match up with fancy unlabeled bar graphs from keynotes and presentations, nor the ever-increasing synthetic benchmark scores. The psychology of this matters. For the most profitable tech company on the planet, the most popular option in North America, if they had called the phone an 11 Plus, I don't think I'd be stressing this as hard. I'd still be stupid snarky, that's never going away. But I fear consumers have given up on the tech conversation. New phones are exhausting, not exciting. And in part, it's this marketing push to overpromise which leads to consumer apathy. The iPhone 11 Pro Max is a delightful, iterative improvement over the XS. But the consumer who buys this after seeing an insane amount of media about how amazing and aspirational the product is will likely continue to produce similar quality content compared to their previous iPhones. And if someone really had designs on producing YouTube videos, vlogs, mobile journalism, or more complex video projects, they might be missing out on more cost-effective and more flexible options. How do monster specs compare against monster claims? Can we balance big expectations against big price tags? We gotta dig deep. Reviewing a camera is more than just taking a handful of photos off my porch and breathlessly praising the good colors or counting up all them tasty megapixels. I like to show my work. Buckle up, folks, we have a lot of ground to cover, and I'm gonna try and move pretty quick. These camera reviews take a really long time to produce. There are 4 cameras to consider on this phone, and shooting photo and video samples on all of them is tough. At least I get to work outside. The terrible aesthetic for the rear stovetop contains 3 of the best cameras you'll find on any phone made in 2019. Ditto the terrible unibrow notch hiding the top option selfie camera of last year. Apple, like Samsung and LG, leaning on the last generation of the larger 12 megapixel sensors for the main shooter. And like Sony, replicating 12 megapixels for the zoom and ultra wide. Never made any sense to me why manufacturers would have different resolution output for each sensor if we're trying to make this feel like one super zoom lens. But I digress. The zoom and ultra wide use smaller sensors. I'm pretty confident that the telephoto is smaller than a 1/3 inch, but I can't find good info on the ultra wide. I'd assume somewhere in that ballpark to play with the different focal lengths of the lenses. The equivalent field of view is neatly a multiple of 2 from ultra wide to standard to telephoto. And the most appreciated benefit of Apple's software and hardware synergy, we get the same video specs on all 3 cameras and the selfie shooter. Oh, reading off the specs is where most camera reviews usually stop. So it's time for us to start looking at some samples. Whew. Okay, that was a lot of talking. We should probably wrap this up. Where's that leave us with the cameras on the iPhone 11 Pro Max? I have some concerns over the most expensive phone of 2019 making such bold claims about professional grade work months in. We're finally getting those teased features like multi-shot and deep fusion. We're about a half a year from the next iPhone reveal, and considering where my iPhone XS is, I would expect more feature fragmentation moving forward. If a Pixel 3a can shoot a great night mode shot, shouldn't my previously $1,000 XS be able to do something similar? Why can't I get an option for 16:9 cropping on my previously $1,000 iPhone XS? Is the A12 not powerful enough to cut the photo different? For all the amazing torque of this chipset, for how incredible it is as an auto mode consumer shooter, it just doesn't live up to the Pro label Apple slapped on it. That label should mean more than it's the wallet busting version of a gadget. I'm taking the iPad Pro a lot more seriously as mobile apps get more sophisticated. There's a good separation of features and power there. The new Mac Pro is pricey, but is one of the better platforms for a true professional workstation and returns to upgradability we haven't seen from Apple in years. Not since I was an Apple sales specialist for a Department of Energy contractor. I used to be such an insufferable Apple nerd, I had that certificate framed on my desk. But I digress again. The iPhone 11 Pro does not succeed in that same philosophy, and Apple made their biggest claims over content creation and video performance. I have a really hard time looking at the iPhone 11 Pro against how amazing the regular 11 is at pricing much closer to OnePlus territory. When it comes to photography, we're basically leveraging a $400 difference between the 11 and the 11 Pro Max to get that telephoto lens. That one camera is not worth $400. I'm a huge nerd for phones like the iPhone SE, tactically targeting specific demographics. And I can't say enough nice things about the iPhone 11 delivering a great bang for buck and only asking a handful of small compromises against the Pro. It punches well above the expectations one might have for a cheaper version of an iPhone. When Apple abandons it for new software features in September, the sting will be $400 less brutal. I really have to wonder, when the A14 Bionic comes out, how badly will the iPhone 11 Pro be left behind? For all this talk of power, what software upgrades will this $1,100 starting price phone not receive? This is Apple's first stab at a Pro labeled phone. And I don't think it quite gets us there. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these reviews, subscribing to this channel. Reviewing a camera, any camera, takes a lot of work. Waiting for updates, days of shooting, analysis, writing, filming, editing, and producing. And if you really care about content creation, this conversation requires more nuance than a couple quickly captured juicy HDR shots and then declaring a thumbs up, thumbs down winner. That kind of reviewing is lame. In reality, it's all pros and cons, and fitting the right pros and cons to your needs. Plus, big manufacturer claims should require more scrutiny. If you would like to help support the production of these longer-term deep dives, there are links below, but I would also respectfully ask that you check out my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. YouTube ad revenue is not able to cover this kind of production. We could not subsidize it at my last tech outlet, and it certainly can't cover my time on my own solo channel. Patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy is home to the full versions of all these camera and audio reviews, and you get to join a growing community of fun tech pals. A private Discord, semi-regular community live streams, production diaries. I really like my crew. They're good people, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, and the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I will catch you all on the next review.